What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video, and in today's video we're going to be talking about what will likely be the last film that I'll be checking out in theaters theatrically this year in 2023. It's been a crazy year with a lot of great films, a lot of bad films, a lot of early screeners, a lot of streaming movies. There's been all kinds of movies to talk about, and today we're going to be wrapping up the year in terms of the theatrical films that I got to check out with an A24 film that I've been very excited to check out, but unfortunately missed the chance to check out early because of my day job. And that movie is called The Iron Claw. Written and directed by Durkin, this film stars people like Zac Efron, Jeremy Allen White, Harris Dickinson, Maury Tierney, Stanley Simons, Holt McCallany, and many, many more, and tells the story of the Von Erichs, one of the most popular families in all of wrestling. But before we get into this review, let's go ahead and hear a word from today's sponsor. Whether you're trying to get yourself in the right headspace for the day, maybe you got a lot of stress going on in your day-to-day life, or you're like me and you do not have a good sleep schedule, you're going to want to try out the sponsor of today's video, and that is Hemp Honey. They use all natural ingredients, no GMOs, no artificial flavors, infused with their hemp extract to give you a various amount of products that can give you different forms of alleviation for your specific needs. Me personally, as I mentioned, I don't sleep all that well, so I've been trying their Hemp Honey sticks, the sleep version, which these are great. You can literally ingest them right out of the stick itself. You can put it into your coffee, into your tea, whatever the case may be. And I'd like it because it doesn't make me ever feel overly drowsy or anything like that. But instead, once I've actually fallen asleep, I'm having far deeper sleep, waking up feeling far more rested. And the kind folks over at Hemp Honey are giving you guys the chance to get 10% off of your order over on their website by following the link in my description box down below and putting promo code Perez10 at checkout. Again, a big thanks to Hemp Honey for sponsoring today's video. I really appreciate it. So as I mentioned in the intro, this is probably my last movie I'll be checking out in theaters this year, which is kind of heartbreaking. You know, I've checked out so many movies this year. As of right now, this is currently my 110th 2023 release that I have seen this year. That's not counting the other maybe 60 films that I've seen in general from previous years this year. It's been a jam-packed year of movies and even some TV that is not counted in any of that. And I just want to say a big thanks to you guys as we come to the end of the year for sticking around and watching all these videos. Whether you've only been here for a year, maybe just a few months, or you've been here since the early years. I'm super grateful for a lot of the support that I've received over the course of the year. And so yeah, today we're talking about The Iron Claw, which is one of the latest releases coming from A24, and a film that has definitely been getting a lot of buzz when it comes down to, you know, heading into this award season. I've spent majority of December just covering award season buzz movies, and it's been a blast. I'm looking forward to getting to some dumber, schlockier films that I'm sure we're going to be getting in January and February to move away from all this prestige filmmaking. Not that I'm complaining in any way, shape, or form, but, you know, there's been so much goodness that it's so hard to narrow down what my favorite movies are of the year. And in the next couple of days, you guys can expect to get my top 10 best and top 10 worst. The top 10 worst video was very easy to kind of narrow down in terms of my top 10 worst, but the top 10 best was without a doubt one of the most difficult top 10s I've ever had to put together, simply because there was a lot of great films this year and it was really hard to decipher a top 10 out of the 110 films of 2023 that I saw. But let me not waste any more of your time. You're here for The Iron Claw, and so this movie, for anybody who's not familiar, follows the story of the Von Erichs, one of the most successful and popular families coming out of wrestling. And for me personally, wrestling is something that I've always kind of enjoyed in video games. I've watched a couple of fights over the course of my life, throughout the course of time, just it being on TV, but it isn't really a sport that I'm super well knowledged in. It's not something that I really know too much about. So going into this, I didn't know the story of the Von Erichs. I didn't know any of the tragedy that they went through, and so I kind of just watched this as a casual viewer. But based on the trailer, it seemed like it was going to be a heavy movie, and that was a lot of the talk I was hearing about this movie as well. And after having seen the film, I can definitely confirm that. Now, for anybody who's unfamiliar with what this movie is all about, as I mentioned, it focuses on the Von Erichs, but most notably a group of brothers who are all raised and trained to be wrestlers, just like their father, who is now a retired individual in that world of wrestling. Holt McCallany plays Fritz von Erich, who is the father in this situation, who is absolutely in love with the sport and absolutely addicted with rising up in the ranks and getting all the belts and all the accolades that he possibly can. And so when he has his sons, he decides to raise them in the world, specifically of sports, but most notably in wrestling. And the movie specifically focuses on the character of Kevin, played by Zac Efron, who I think without a doubt gives his best performance I've ever seen him give in anything. I mean, listen, I grew up with the guy in High School Musical. You know, I used to tease those movies when I was a kid. Nowadays, I have a little bit more of a nostalgic attachment to them, and I definitely appreciate the journey that Zac Efron has gone on. But let's be real, after those movies, he did a lot of rom-coms and a lot of silly comedies, and I've always been interested whenever an actor is able to kind of take what they were before and do something that completely changes your outlook on them as an actor. And for me, that is exactly what Iron Claw did when it comes down to Zac Efron. I mean, without a doubt, the dude gives easily the best performance of his career in this movie. And so he plays the eldest of the brothers here in this situation, who are all raised, as I mentioned, to be wrestlers. They're raised to be the best. And this father is really strict. He does not play around when it comes down to these kids and their aspirations, and he has grown them into men who are, you know, pretty much under his thumb in a lot of ways. So what you have here is a story about trying to achieve goals within wrestling, trying to live up to a family name, and you mix in pride, you mix in accidents, tragedy, and misfortune, and you have a tension-filled, wrestling-filled drama on your hands here with this movie. Now, I don't know a lot about the Von Erichs, as I mentioned, but on the way home, my fiance had looked up some articles to try to pull up some of the various things that they omitted from the real-life story, what they may have changed. And I don't know all the details, but I can say that it seems like there were some creative liberties in terms of the real story, actual people that were part of their family that were omitted from the story altogether, and some story events that were a little bit altered for the sake of the movie. So you're always going to have something like that, and this isn't going to be a video where I compare the real life story to the movie. I'm instead just going to take the movie as it is and just talk about it on its own. And what I could say right out of the gate is that this is an incredibly well made and most notably well acted film. I've already praised Zac Efron, saying that this is his best role that he's ever played, in my opinion. But outside of him, the rest of the cast, Jeremy Allen White, Harris Dickinson, Holt McCallany, Maury Tierney, and Stanley Simons, and so many others. I mean, this is a movie that has a jam-packed cast of individuals who are all giving very realistic and committed performances throughout the course of the film, which kept me gripped and glued to the screen for the entirety of the runtime. On top of that, this is a film that takes us a few decades back, as you can tell from the trailers and the marketing. And of course, like any other period piece or something that's set in a specific time, you want to have the hair, you want to have the outfits, you want to have the vehicles, you want to have the world take you back to that time and actually feel like that time. So like any good period piece, you have great production design, great wardrobe design, the hair and makeup is top notch, and overall, one thing that I really appreciated about this film as well is that it feels like all the characters are from the time that this story takes place in. And Zac Efron is a really notable part about this movie, not only because of the things I've already mentioned, but because his overall aesthetic is very much of this time, taking us back to the 80s and when all of this stuff with wrestling was really ramping up. And when I started seeing some of the early set photos of Zac Efron come out from this movie, where he's got that Lord Farquaad haircut and he was just looking absolutely jacked, I was really curious to see how this movie was going to turn out. And after seeing the movie and just seeing Zac Efron in some of these sequences, I mean, the dude got disgustingly shredded. It is absolutely unreal. This has to be the most insanely in shape that the man has ever been. And from some of the stuff I've heard in interviews, it doesn't necessarily seem like he loves having to do this for movies. I know that I'm sure he probably saw the script and saw who was involved in making this movie and knew that this was something that he needed to work hard to physically look badass in so that he can really, you know, sell the role. But yeah, he really committed to obviously the physical element of this film to get prepared for it. He plays the character so well, and he very much like built his body like an individual from that time frame. You know, as you know, sports and as health and as fitness has changed over the course of decades, so has the way that most people, when it comes to the traditional look of fitness, that look has always consistently changed. But if you look back to the 70s, the 80s, and 90s, there was a slightly different body frame, especially for something in the world of wrestling. And I think that Zac Efron did an incredible job in the training for this film to really fit the aesthetic of this film and fit the aesthetic of the individual he playing in real life. Overall, when it comes down to the technical elements of this film, the editing, the production design, the performances, I thought this film was pretty much flawless. If I had to lean into any negatives that I had for this film, I can genuinely say that the only real thing that I struggled with this film at times was its pacing. It was slow to me at times, and I did find myself a tad bored, but it was one of those situations where I was bored, but I never pulled out my phone to check what time it was. I was never completely pulled out of the movie because I was a little bit bored. I just simply was thinking to myself, this is a little bit slow, this is a little bit boring, but always impressed by the filmmaking at hand. And I think the movie utilizes its 2 hours and 12 minutes to really tell the story that needs to be told. There's not a lot of downtime. Those scenes are all kind of pivotal. There aren't really sequences or scenes in this film that I would say need to be cut from the film. So by no means is this one of those things where I'm saying, oh, I was so bored, you should cut a portion of the film out. No, like I kind of feel everything was really important to tell the story that is on display here. This is just a slower film. This is a film that's far more somber. This is a family that's dealing with pride, with living up to a certain name, that's dealing with tragedy and misfortune and accidents, back to back to back. This is a sad movie. This is not an underdog sports tale where you're going to be rooting for the characters and they go through some hardships. This is a movie about a family that went through 97% hardships while trying to achieve some pretty big goals and trying to fill some pretty big shoes within their family, dealing with parental pressures and different things like that. And just on so many levels, this is a film that's filled with drama and tension, but has a very somber and slow tone. And so it is a slow burn. I personally really enjoyed the film. I really enjoyed it. I had a good time with it. I thought it was beautifully made and so well acted, but I just had to be honest on the side of things that I did find myself a little bit bored at times, and I felt the runtime of this film. But that would honestly be my only real gripe with this film, as outside of that, I found this to be really well made. It's a standout film from this year, no doubt. It's no doubt I've been hearing such good things about this film, but I can see this movie maybe boring some who aren't as into the filmmaking element and maybe just want to watch this for entertainment. This isn't a movie I would put on for entertainment purposes, but it is absolutely a movie I would put on for a very rich story with incredible filmmaking and top tier performances throughout the entirety of the runtime. Again, with Zac Efron being the standout here, again, best role he's ever played, but I still want to give a shout out to the rest of the cast. Jeremy Allen White, Harris Dickinson, Holt McCallany, as well as the father. I mean, the cast is stacked and they all do an incredible job. Everybody feels like a real person in this film, and there's nothing better than watching a movie where you lose the fact that you're watching actors and you are watching characters, you are watching real people, and this is one of those movies that absolutely does that. I lost Zac Efron in this role. I was incredibly impressed by his entire performance. Jeremy Allen White as well. Just everybody just really impressed me in this film when it came down to the performances, and that's what glued me and I think so many others to the movie. Even if it was slow at times, even if I found myself a tad bored, I was always impressed. So I won't ramble much more. A big thanks to you guys for watching, and please, down below in the comments, let me know what you guys think about the Iron Claw. Is it a movie you enjoyed? Is it a movie that you didn't enjoy? Is it something that's on your radar? Whatever the case may be, leave any and all comments down below, and I'll see you beautiful people in the next one. And I look forward to talking to you guys about another theatrical release next year as we move into 2024. I have a lot of early movie reviews that I'm going to be shooting out to the channel this coming week. I'm looking forward to dropping some early reviews moving into 2024 already, starting to talk about those 2024 releases very, very soon, just this upcoming week, as well as my top 10 best and top 10 worst of 2023. And I look forward to having all of you guys chime down below with your agreements, your disagreements, and your top 10 best and worst in the comment sections. A big thanks to you guys for watching, and I'll see you beautiful people in the next one. Bye-bye.